Welcome back to Smallville Season 11 right here at Comicstorian, your home for your favorite comic books read dramatically back to you as an audio drama by a guy who thinks he's an amateur voice actor. So here's your quick recap. Volume 1 told you where we are in the Smallville universe. Volume 2 introduced us to Batman. Volume 3 told us what happened to Impulse, aka Bart Allen. Volume 4 introduced us to what happened to Kara, aka Supergirl, and Volume 5 introduced us to Wonder Woman, while Volume 6 told us that there is a crisis coming. 7 was the Green Lanterns being reintroduced into this world of the Smallville universe, and now we are to Volume 8, where we're going to go on a bit of a different adventure. We're going to learn more of what the Monitors are doing and what the alternate universes are doing in general. Plus, well, Lanterns aren't gone, are they? South drifts down from the sky on top of Holt Cord Super Collider in Antarctica. Inside, Lois Lane thanks the two billionaires once again for inviting the Daily Planet to the grand activation of their project. Ted Cord nods as they tell her that the goal of the Super Collider is to create easy, renewable energy. A remarkable goal, to be sure. She begins holding up her phone to record some of their answers. But what makes the Collider better or more likely to succeed over the other colliders around the world? Holt smiles as Ted Cord notes that he is a genius when it comes to business and science. I do believe that you're recording this interview on one of my phones, he tells her with a nod. As they enter the main chamber, though, both billionaires inform Lois that none of this would even be possible without their late backer. I waffled in a bit earlier on the subject. A voice calls out to her, and Lois turns, her face turning into a scowl. But I'm beginning to learn from my mistakes. Lex smiles at her, and Luthor holds out his hand asking how Clark is, but Lois ignores the polite gesture. He made it out of Russia alive, no thanks to you. She turns back to the others, commenting on the rumors that Lex has stolen some of the tech from the DEO, but Luthor turns to Cord and Holt, a charming smile on his face. Gentlemen, please! I have no intention of doing anything here today but giving. Meanwhile, inside of the Collider, Otis is counting off the sections, making sure that he doesn't miss anything. He stops shining his light around, and reaching into his backpack, he pulls free the device that Luthor gave him, and he attaches it to the Collider. Here goes nothing, he breathes, watching as the device lights up. Inside of the control room, the machine is activated, and Lois watches as bright lights begin to glow, and she holds up her phone. The light begins to meld and shift, and one of the technicians tries to get a hold of Cord and Holt's attention. We didn't generate a single Higgs boson, he explains, and shock comes over Holt's face as he looks at the shifting portal. We're in the process of generating an infinite number of Higgs bosons, all existing in the same space, Cord finishes. The air splits apart in the chamber as the portal shifts. Warning lights begin to blink around them as the glass begins to shatter, and Lex smiles as the bleed energy fills the area. The room begins to swirl, and Lois feels herself being yanked off her feet. Reaching out, she grabs onto a banister. Typical, she gasps. Meanwhile, over in Metropolis, Superman is dealing with a criminal when his comm suddenly chirps. He leaps into the sky, breaking the sound barrier in seconds. Lois gets yanked free, being pulled towards the bleed portal when suddenly Superman's arms are circling around her. I've got you, he tells her. But who's got you? She asks, and in the chamber, Holt slams his fist onto the controls, shutting down the Collider. As darkness fills around them, the portal disappears. Where did Superman and Miss Lane go? Cord asks. Though no one can see him, Lex smiles, dusting himself off. I think I just killed 2 birds with 1 stone. Meanwhile, the DEO headquarters, Steve Trevor and Oliver Queen lean over the banister. Trevor explains that they believe that Green Arrow is the perfect person to train a new tactical squad. Women and men I can drop into a dangerous situation handling super-related threats. They walk back over to Chloe and Diana, who is marveling at the pregnant woman. You given the big pitch yet or what? Chloe asks. Oliver just shakes his head. Of course she knew about this. He smiles. When suddenly the conversation is interrupted as everyone's phones begin to chirp with the Watchtower party line. They all answer, listening for a second. What do you mean they vanished? Oliver demands. On the other end, Booster Gold is finishing explaining that Lois and Superman were pulled through a tear in reality. Otis stands in the shadows in the corner, holding a device that sparks with bleed energy. He dashes as Booster and Skeets round the corner with a little robot tracking the alien tech that it detected. The historical records that we traveled back to the 21st century with, do they have any data on either Clark Kent or Superman or Lois Lane vanishing from reality? Booster Gold asks his friend as they continue down the corridor. They do not. Skeets chirps after checking. In fact, I'm having an incredibly difficult time accessing any records we brought back with us. Something's gone sideways, Booster notes, leaping into the air to fly down the hallway. I hate when things go sideways. Meanwhile, over at the DEO, Zatanna Zatara sits within a magical sigil, her eyes glowing with arcane energy, and there's a pop, and Chloe and Oliver look on. Everything calms, and Zatanna turns to them. Lois and Clark are in Metropolis, she tells them, but Chloe shakes her head. No, they're not. I didn't say this, Metropolis. Superman opens his eyes. The sky is dark overhead. Lois, he murmurs, and the woman is next to him, her voice barely above a whisper. Get with the program, Smallville, she hisses, and she pulls Clark to his feet with the two of them looking around at the destroyed remains of Metropolis, smoke and fire bellowing around them. Clark quickly grabs her and the two leap into the air. Lois is still whispering, though, asking if they could have possibly time traveled. No, that rift that we fell through is just like the one that Chloe's doppelganger from Earth 2 crashed through. And why are we whispering? Look around, this is the kind of place where you whisper, she tells them. And they both stop and look around, staring in shock at a costumed hero that hangs from a building. We're lost in the multiverse, Clark tells her, and the two of them turn to see the Monitor ships in the distance, laying waste to everything. How do we get home? I don't know. I don't know what we do, he whispers. Back in Antarctica, Lex stands in the hangar bay, about to board his own plane, and he finishes explaining to Cord and Holt that he is out. This facility is unstable, so unstable, in fact, that it ate Superman. Thank you both for your time, he tells them. Otis steps back off the ship, calling to Luthor, explaining to him that the Monitor tech is already starting to lose its charge. Lex sighs irritably. He reaches into his pocket, pulling out his phone, and hits a few buttons. Finally, he turns back to the two businessmen. You know, guys, I was wrong to say that I wasn't interested. Quite the opposite, actually. He smiles, putting his arms around the two men. I would like to buy you out, actually. We aren't selling, Cord tells him, flabbergasted. Yellow energy suddenly explodes all around them, and the two businessmen are forced to take cover. Consider this more of a hostile takeover, Lex tells them with a smile as his yellow lantern appears out of the snow. Meanwhile, in another reality. This way! Lois yells, swinging her crowbar, smashing the face of a manhunter. The heads fall off, but the robot keeps coming. She looks up at Clark, who's surrounded by robots, and he tears them apart with his hands, swooping over Lois. She jumps up as he catches her, flying away fast. The manhunters then surround them, though, closing in fast. He darts away, forcing them to collide with each other. More follow, with Clark leading in on a chase through multiple buildings. But the manhunters don't give up. I thought they were lantern baddies, Lois asks. Clark nods, turning and blasting one with a heat vision. These ones are running on bleed energy. Best guess, they deal with each Earth's supers and metas while the Monitors move their ships into firing position. With a brief moment, Clark picks up the sound of a prayer with his super hearing, and they land quickly, standing in front of a church. Clark pushes the door open, revealing a large cathedral. People murmur in quiet prayer, and a person stands rushing to the back where he tells them they need to leave. Capes are the reason why most of us are dead, the man huffs. Superman stares stunned at the person before him. Jimmy? He whispers, but another voice tells him that they can stay. There's nowhere else to run, she sighs. Lois stares at another version of herself, tired and old. You're? She gasps. Am I? The older woman questions. Superman steps forward, putting his hand on the other Lois's shoulder, asking what happened. Tears fill her eyes as she explains that she watched them murder him. Mr. Majestic along with every other hero. They walk through the church with Lois explaining that the Monitors positioned their ships on opposite sides of the Earth. They did something to the Earth's core, and then they started joining in from above the cities. It's only a matter of time before the one over us follows suit. As if on cue, the light shining through the windows turns a reddish hue of the bleed. The group look on as a beam of bleed energy shoots from the ship, destroying Metropolis. We have to get out of here, Smallville, Lois whispers. She turns back to the group, trying to get her doppelganger to get people moving, but despite the destruction coming through, no one moves and they continue their quiet prayers. Lois turns to her angry. And go where? She asks. Anger flashes through her, and Jimmy is holding her back. They're doing this to every major city. They hit DC and Australia first, did something beneath the crust, always in pairs from opposing sides. She falls to her knees, tears streaming down her eyes. Nothing could stop them, not you, not your Superman, nothing. She reaches into the waistband of her jeans, pulling free a pistol. Outside, Superman destroys another detachment of manhunters. With them dispatched, he turns to the Monitor ships that have begun the destruction of Metropolis. Another group of manhunters descend, floating in front of them. You will not harm these people, he tells them, when suddenly the blast of bleed energy ceases, and the manhunters stare for another second as they turn and return to their ship. Prepare for the purge, prepare for the purge, they chant. That doesn't sound good, Clark notes, with gunshots ringing in his ears, and he tears back through the church, shouting Lois's name. She stands there, tears in her eyes, with Lois holding her as they look at those who took their lives rather than face the end. The ships blast again, and Clark tells her that it's time to go, pulling her outside. Go where? She asks, and they leap into the sky, flying away as the buildings are torn apart by the bleed. This world still had a Kryptonian in the form of Majestic, he tells her. Even Money says that his overbearing father built him an ice castle too. Behind them, Metropolis disappears in a blast of bleed. Back on Earth, a yellow bubble has trapped the people of Cord and Holt's super collider inside, and both businessmen are trapped by the restraints made by the yellow energy. Gentlemen, be reasonable, Luthor tells them as he stands over them. Give us the access code so that we can take your marvelous machine out for a spin. But they both refuse, telling Luthor that he was the one who killed Superman. And Miss Lane, Otis whispers, we should be so lucky, but something tells me that they'll manage. So I ask you again, with less kindness and a smidge more sinister, I'd say don't be heroes, but heroes are what I need. Yellow guns appear and they begin to fire. And during this, Booster Gold is watching on his own feed. The fate of the world now rests in our hands, sir, Skeets tells him, and Booster simply says, terrific. And there you have it. Another cliffhanger. Now, I will say this is going to be shorter episodes, these two for Volume 8, and the reason for that is simple. They started up a side plot which involved a virus infecting the main world, but from what we could find, unless it happened in a weird spinoff, and Smallville does have spinoff books, it doesn't seem to end. So we just cut it all out of our read, and we're just giving you what's going on with Superman and Lois. So make sure you subscribe. Next Sunday will be the conclusion to this part, and then we enter into the finale to Smallville. So if you've been sticking it out, thank you so much. Please give this video a like, and we'll see you next time right here at Comicstorian.